PortobelloRadio.com. Tune in when you get a chance.
Yes, tune in when you get the chance. And the art just keeps coming here on Portobello Radio. We are delighted to have it with us, Mulumba. Hi, Mulumba. How are you doing, man?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Mulumba, we met you through our old associate, he's not that old actually, Nick Corson of Steamco,
Yes.
who we've worked with on a number of occasions, not the least of which being Carnival recently. You've been working also with Steamco, but you have you have a show coming up.
I do.
Up there in Queen's Park next week.
Yes,
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's is it next week already?
I think it is. Yeah.
So it kicks off on the 3rd of November.
Right. So it's not. It's the week after. It's actually election day.
Precisely, and I've done that for good reason, because the show features, how would I put them? Some special characters who I somehow, by sheer network, I've managed to get Boris to turn up, Trump, Putin, Kim Jong-un,
all our favourites,
Grace Mugabe,
all our favourites.
They're all going to be present, and all of this in honour of our very dearest Queen. So the show is called The Dictator's Garden, An Ode to the Queen.
So it's a kind of Dictator's Garden party.
It's a garden's party. It's a garden party.
So you've called it the Dictator's Garden.
Yes, I have.
That was. Is that from something? Is that from a poem or a song or?
It actually stems from my childhood.
Oh.
I was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was born there when it was still called Zaire under Mobutu.
Yeah.
And Zaire at that time was a very beautiful country. It was paradisiac for me. Of course, I was young, so I saw everything, very colorfully. And Mobutu was sort of the god of the world, and he was this beautiful man, and everything would come to a standstill when his motorcade would go around town. So for me, it was a very beautiful thing. It's only later, as an adult, that I came to realize that this Mobutu was actually quite a devil. So it's the juxtaposition of these perceptions that we have of certain characters and what they're able to do and how far they go to destroy this world, which is a very beautiful world.
It's a beautiful world. I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier on in the show to Alison Jackson,
yes,
who has done this life-size Trump. We were talking a little bit earlier to Hugo, talking about hyper-realism and blurring fiction and reality. There seems to be a wave in art at the moment to blur the distinction between fiction and fact, which is what you're doing there.
I would like to think that what I'm trying to do is remind all of us how alike we are, how real in the here and now, this space that we share, it belongs to all of us. So I'm very much in the realist frame of mind, which is why my paintings are also the border on the realism. I wouldn't call it cartoonish or an exaggeration. It's more of a realist beautification of our human nature, I would say.
I mean, you're sitting here with a representation of our dear Queen, who she's blacked up.
Yes, I've painted the Queen black because, in my opinion, I've always thought that the Queen would be quite pleased if she one day woke up black. I think it'd be,
It definitely would not be the end of the world for her, would it?
I think, I think she would be quite happy about it. Where my worry comes in, especially in the current state of the world, is what society would think about it if they suddenly woke up and their Queen were black.
I think they'd love it. I think they chuffing love it. It'll be brilliant.
It's a brilliant. I can see myself
idea.
pitching the movie already. It's a fantastic idea, because going back to what you just said, we're in this polarised world. You can blame it on the
Absolutely.
the last crash. You can blame it on MPs' expenses. You can blame it on Brexit. You can blame it on this. You can blame it on that. But we're in a culture war where we spend an awful lot of time working out what we're at odds about, what is different
absolutely.
about us.
And part of the exercise of having her black is to exactly that, is to break this binary chain that we've sort of, that binds us. I mean, that's what causes us to be always in the position of us versus them. There is no us versus them. We're all the same. And
But
it's
we're all different.
Yes, and that's
At the
the
same
beauty of
time.
it. Yes, we're all different because we've been programmed differently. Somebody who was born in the Middle East is more likely to be Muslim. That's the sort of programming. Somebody who was here might be Christian. Somebody might be atheist. But at the end of the day, we all need to go to the loo. We all need to eat. We all want to be happy. We want our friends to be happy. We all want the same thing.
Baby, we all bleed red blood.
Absolutely,
You
100.
know that.
Absolutely,
You
100%.
know that.
Except the Queen, who bleeds blue blood, of course.
Not if she was a black queen, right?
You can have many blue bloods in Africa. Just look at the great empires of Benin and Nigeria and so on and so forth.
And we forget that. We forget that if you go into history, and people want us to forget that what goes around sort of comes around. And a long time ago, the black population ruled the world. They And I mean, I don't want
it
to
all began
get,
in Africa.
Yeah, I don't want to get political and whatever, but it's a circle.
It's a circle. Remind me the name of the gallery.
Worldly, wicked, and wise.
And that is in Salisbury Road,
Yes.
up by the pub and the primary school.
Just 2 seconds away from the tube.
Yeah. So
Directly opposite the Salisbury.
no,
Most importantly,
Most importantly, directly opposite the Salisbury.
and it's a good thing you mentioned that because of COVID, the whole entire show is literally a private view, so it's only 6 guests at a time for 20 minutes. The beauty, however, is that because the Salisbury is across the street, you can sort of mill about there, have your drink, and then come around and have a private conversation with the artist for 20 minutes. So it's going to be quite special.
yeah, if you haven't been up that way recently, it's really quite fancy dancy up there. On,
It's getting
Queen's
fancier.
Park.
It's getting fancier. It's getting fancier by the day. That's
What's it like as an artist? I mean, you've just said that people are lucky, even if they're not the kind of people who get invited to private views. Nowadays, wherever you go, whichever gallery you go to, it's more or less like a private view.
yeah, absolutely. I think people are getting a bit more attention than they would normally get when it comes to certain art scenes around here. And this is precisely it. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be there day in and day out from the 3rd to the 15th. And literally, whatever time you turn up, the artist will be there. And I think, there are all sorts of ways to look at art. There are no rules. But it's always interesting for somebody to get the artist's perspective. But even more so, as an artist, it's always very nice to see people's reactions. And for me, I'm particularly interested in people's negative reactions. I'm more keen to speak to somebody who says, you know what, I'm looking at this and it just doesn't resonate. It's horrible. And then to understand why they feel that way. I think being informed in that way is quite crucial to developing as an artist. So I'm looking forward to that one-on-one special private viewing.
Wow. You know what? That's a question I ask a lot of artists, is what it's like having to be the direct intermediary between the viewer and your work. And most artists, they shy away from that a little bit. I mean, that's why people like galleries, because there's some other bloke trying to sell the work for you, or usually some pretty young lady trying to sell the work for you. Have you always felt that way about your art, that you would kind of engage with people who might be antipathetic towards it?
It's a bit daunting. When I started my art career, I didn't anticipate having to communicate with people verbally. For me, my art was going to do the talking, and that's really presumptuous. And it's not always the case. People, I'm learning, start to appreciate your work a bit more when you can contextualize it, when you can articulate it, when you can sort of explain to them why you've done this. Now, there are all sorts of reasons why I do what I do, but I don't want to play God. I think the crux of my work is to start conversations, and again, as we started out at the beginning, it's these conversations about these binary views of the world, us versus them. That's all I want to do. And so that's going to be the beauty of having these 20 minutes slots, is this intimacy with which we're going to be able to exchange between artist and viewer, and I mean that helps me grow, and that's just my view.
We're sitting here next to your picture of the Queen,
Yes.
in which you've reimagined her as black. You told a tiny story while one of the records was on about. You just finished this, and you were sitting in the pub
About
having a
Gentleman,
drink.
yes. I just finished drawing the Queen. I was quite proud of myself. I'd taken it out on the road to show a few people, and then I decided I was going to pat myself on the back with a drink. And I walk into the pub, and there must have been about 10 people in there, and the pub went quiet, and this gentleman stood up, came to me, obviously, absolutely angry. How dare you paint the Queen black? What an insult! I literally froze. I was absolutely dumbfounded. But then something, the wires in my head went, and I just stared at him and I said, "Well, what's wrong with me?" And he had absolutely no response. He just sort of and walked away. But that's when I knew that I was onto something. If I can elicit those emotions, even like visceral, even if it's the angry side of yourself, if it can come out to the surface and then we talk about it, how marvelous.
Amazing. You know what? I'm going to try and tempt a few details of your other work out of you. We're going to play Tanya Stevens, who has been a regular fixture. ISIS, unfortunately, has not been able to be with us during Black History Month, but she is a Tanya Stevens fan, so every week we play a Tanya Stevens song just for her. Little White Lie.
Once upon a time, there was a happy family. There was a baby girl, a daddy, and there was a mommy. Mommy had a secret. She told a little white lie. When she tucked the baby in at night, she sang her this lullaby. You got your daddy's smile, and if you could talk.
Portobello Radio.com.
Yeah, that is Little White Lies by Tanya Stevens. Sorry, we were all madly Instagramming and so on and so forth. The christening is just starting by the looks of things over there at the Maxilla. We are still here with Mulumba. The show is almost at its end. Mulumba is doing a show up there in Salisbury Road next week, or Tuesday week, election day.
November 3rd.
November 3rd.
With the extra private viewing on the 4th.
Ah.
Yes.
The day after the election.
We've got a few surprises for that particular day.
Let's see how we feel. Now, it's called The Dictator's Garden. The one piece of work that we have now seen, because it's on the invitation, is the Blacked Up Queen.
Yes.
You've promised a few other dictators. Can you give us any hints what we might see?
Oh, of course.
Before we get nicked?
Yes, I think I might have already. Trump is obviously there because it's I go Putin. His friend Vladimir Putin is going to be present. His beloved Kim Jong-un.
Right.
But we've got some other people like Idi Amin.
Idi, our old friend Idi.
Idi Amin is going to be there. Pol Pot.
Yeah.
The gentleman whose name we shall not mention, because he sort of stirs things up in completely a different direction. But I'm pretty sure if you're thinking of dictators and general history, current history, or 1945 is the hint.
Right.
Is going to be present, except we're going to give him a bit of a special treatment. He's not going to be hanging on the walls. He's going to be lying on the floor.
Right, probably where he belongs. I mean, there are 2 or 3 dictators from 1945 who could be in the mix here, but
Stalin is going to be there, and it's quite a beautiful portrait. I'm quite pleased with my portrait of Stalin. The thing is, it's the discomfort that I want to create. When you look at these atrocious people painted beautifully with flowers and birds and butterflies, you're like, what is this? But we've all got that dichotomy within all of us. We all have the potential to be good or evil. So, for instance, ask yourself a question. Imagine that person who I did not name, had he gone to art school and applied his sense of organization, of getting people together and blah, blah. Imagine what he may have achieved instead of what he actually did do.
Exactly. I mean, Hitler, of course, was a house painter, but it's not quite the same thing, is it?
You have to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere.
You know?
Mulumba, I can't wait to come and see your show on Tuesday week up there in Salisbury Road. Just remind us the name of the gallery.
Looking forward to having you at the Worldly, Wicked and Wise Gallery.
Opposite the Salisbury.
It's preferable that you go online at Eventbrite. Type in the Dictator's Garden, and you'll be able to book your slot for a private conversation.
Fantastic. One last question. Has there ever been a good-looking dictator?
Well, it's an excellent question. One of the reasons I had this fascination with dictators is that a lot of them have really been fun to paint because they are really good looking. And Pol Pot is a very good example. He was a very handsome man. Stalin was a very handsome man. I've got Gaddafi, whose features were just absolutely incredible. I don't know if you close your eyes and picture Gaddafi.
As a young man, he had amazing cheekbones.
Absolutely.
He kind of puffed up a bit towards the
well,
end.
he did. Well, I mean, that's because he did.
They all do.
They get carried away. Power corrupts, and you have access to things that should not go into your body.
If they want to put people off dictatorship, they should say power puffs you up. Power makes you puffy, rather than power corrupts. No one gives a damn.
Absolutely, power corrupts.
But power makes it puffy and bloated. No one would want it. Mulumba, thank you so much. Remind us what the tune is that we're queuing up for your phone.
A beautiful, happy song which I usually paint to, Indépendance Cha-Cha. And it's a song that celebrates the shackles being broken from the Congo when they received their independence. So this was this celebration of freedom.
Fantastic.
Of being themselves.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, indeed.
A pleasure. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Brilliant,
Thank you for that tune, Mulumba.
Yeah, man, Mulumba. What a geezer. Yeah. What a total fellow. We loved that. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed that.
Well, what a smashing show, Greg.
What a smashing show, darling. You have no idea. That was off the scale. Many scales were lost on that particular trip. It was great, absolutely great. Thank you, everybody out there in Radioland, for joining us.
Local radio for local people.